Democratic Congresswoman Val Demings of Florida, and Mike Dubke, former Trump White House Communications Director. Welcome to you all. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving and you're not too stuffed for our conversation. Susan, let me start with you and just have you set the table here, because we are seeing President Trump really ramp up his crackdown on who can come into the country and who can stay in the country. You heard Secretary Noem say that it's possible they may deport people with pending asylum claims. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I was really struck, of course, that this is all, remember, a response to a terrible tragedy that happened here in Washington on the eve of the holiday. And, absolutely a terrible tragedy, not political in any way. And yet what we're seeing, I think, from the administration is an effort to sort of take that tragedy and now impose what, you might even call a form of collective punishment. The idea that Donald Trump over this holiday weekend is saying we're going to pause all asylum decisions, all people coming in from, quote, third world countries. I don't even know what that means, but it seems to be a response, again, to this tragic killing. So on the one hand, we're still learning about the facts of this case. You spoke about that with the Secretary of Homeland Security, but then you have, what appears to be a list of policies and a sort of a wish list part of the immigration crackdown that I see the administration sort of moving to make as part of this same news cycle about this tragedy of these West Virginia National Guard officials.
Yeah, Mike, pick up on that point, because Susan speaks about this idea of collective punishment, that suddenly all Afghan nationals would be punished for the actions, the horrific actions of this one person. What are the conversations you are having inside the Republican Party about what is unfolding right now? Is there a concern that some of these actions could be going too far and could backfire, quite frankly?
I think there's a concern that, especially among those individuals that either served in the military in Afghanistan and really recognize that now we're painting with a broad brush these individuals that were helpful to American troops. We can't turn our backs on them. So I think that conversation's happening.
Yeah.
But the bigger conversation here really, and I call it this 90, 30, and 3 problem that the president has. He's got 90% of Republicans that are still with him on immigration, the economy, almost every issue. There has been no cracks. 30% of independents and 3% of Democrats. That 30% of independents is really the number he's got to focus on. But right now with immigration, they feel comfortable with the base being with them to double down on the issue that they think is the best one for the administration to run on.
Former Congresswoman Demings, you are a former Orlando police chief. You obviously have served in Congress. How do you see this, particularly as Mike lays out those different factions and the fact that the base is still with President Trump on this?
Well, let me say this. In both of those jobs, I took an oath to the Constitution. President Trump and Secretary Noem did as well. What happened to the National Guard members was a tragedy. Let's get to the bottom of it and find out how this happened so we can prevent it from happening again. But even in the light of this tragedy, the president has to follow the immigration laws that are on the book. He cannot just decide to make up laws as he goes along. That's Congress's job. I'm glad to see Congress is back at work and there. Let Congress do the work that they need to do. If changes need to be made, bring Congress into the table and let them help you make those changes.
We are seeing, Susan, oversight for the first time. It seems as though poised to be oversight on a separate issue, which is the killings of these suspected drug boat traffickers. And it comes amid this revelation that Secretary Hegseth basically gave a spoken order to kill everyone on one of these boats in September. You heard Senator Kelly respond to that and basically say, I hope that reporting's not true. But is this an inflection point where you're starting to see Congress have oversight as one of the themes of this is the president testing the limits of his authority?
Oh my goodness, Kristen, I have to say, first of all, that phrase, expecting to have oversight, what we're 9 months into the Trump administration, and one of the, I think, the signature things we've all observed about our politics not functioning in the way that we expect is Congress, Republican-led in both the House and the Senate, essentially giving Donald Trump as signing over Congress's power to the executive branch. And so, I would say to certain Democrats, especially since those election results have said, oh, maybe we're detecting some cracks in the system, has not yet asserted its role and its function. I do think it's notable that you have both the House and the Senate Armed Services Committee, that's the Republican chairs and the Democrats, saying they want to have hearings on this, that they want to have oversight and an investigation into what occurred. I think what I've heard from many national security veterans, I don't even know what their party is, real alarm about what has been unfolding in the Caribbean, this massive military buildup. President Trump has just declared over the weekend that Venezuelan airspace is closed, and yet you have a real question here. Is it legal? On what basis are these strikes being carried out? You've had law professors and others come out and say it's not legal, even putting aside the question of whether two people who were no longer fighting were killed.
This is one of the themes, questions about how the president's using his executive authority. He called for his political enemies, James Comey and Letitia James, to be prosecuted. Those cases were dropped against them. The administration's going to appeal, but again, it fits into this broader question about whether there are checks on his power. It seems like the courts are the front lines.
You know, the president can only, as the executive branch, can only do what he's doing, good or bad, with Congress and the courts not doing what they're supposed to do. We have a checks and balances system. And just to listen to what you talked about killing everyone, and then the Secretary Hessek wonders why 6 members of Congress felt the need to put out a video reminding service members that they cannot or should not follow illegal orders.
Mike, 10 seconds left.
We have checks and balances in this system. I think the president is going to move as far as he can, as we see with, and as far as this administration will go.
Okay.
That should not be, we should expect that.
All right, Mike, thank you. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for watching. We'll be back next week because if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.